Champions League. Very soon now, literally in a few days, on Tuesday and Wednesday as usual, and I decided to make perhaps an unusual review in this direction. I have to admit, last year and the beginning of this one, the Champions League has been going pretty well for us. Sometimes even accumulators every now and then hit on the Champions League, and accumulators on the Champions League are a whole different story. Risky, unpredictable, and you never know what might happen. But here we will discuss all the matches together. By the way, let's start with Wednesday. There are some interesting events there, and I'd like to talk about them right away. But as for the outcomes, I'll give one prediction for PSG versus Chelsea and one prediction for Real Madrid versus Man City. That's for Wednesday. As for Tuesday, we have Galatasaray versus Liverpool, one prediction and one prediction for Atalanta versus Bayern. But my assumptions and my options for the outcomes for each match, I'll talk through them. Maybe you'll like one of the options and you can choose to follow it or not. At the very least, you can just keep an eye on the accumulator, and of course, we'll put together something for Tuesday and Wednesday in Telegram. We'll give predictions for the Champions League and maybe even for hockey, since recently, just the other day, an accumulator hit in Telegram. I think it was Saturday or Friday, or maybe Saturday. An accumulator with odds of 4.42 hit, made up entirely of football. There were 2 Bundesliga matches in France, all perfect, absolutely no refunds. A 4.5 odds accumulator landed there, and we make these kinds of accumulators every day from 3 to 5. We'll also put together some great odds for the Champions League, so you can check all of that out on our Telegram. Well, let's get straight to the outcomes. The first option I would take for PSG vs Chelsea is I think PSG should score. Well, first of all, they have players who can score, and secondly, they generally score well, and we know that Chelsea from time to time concedes quite a bit. We've seen that happen more than once. Of course, I'd like to just take PSG to score 0.5 or more. 1 goal, okay, for PSG, but as you understand, they're the favorites, and the odds here aren't very interesting. So I'll try to go with the first half. First half, PSG over 0.5 goals at 1.64 odds. There's a match I want to talk about, not in terms of the outcome, just a small observation. It seems to me that Bayern is the favorite against Arsenal here. It's clear that Arsenal and Bayern, as we've seen in their recent games, and yes, maybe not in the Champions League, but they have been scoring against us. That's why I would just look towards something like Bayern's total under, maybe under 1 goal, or take under 0.5 goals for Bayern in the first half. That's just a thought. As for another match, that's Bodø Glimt versus Sporting. I know that many people were definitely surprised by Bodø Glimt in their game against Inter. Both times. They won 3-1, they won 2-1. Where was everyone betting? Well, obviously not on them. At the very least, people were definitely betting on Inter. They thought that either Bodø wouldn't score or Inter would, over 1.5, over 2.5 goals. -1 handicap, that was the classic bet. I think maybe they'll calm down now. I would consider either betting on the under for them for Bodø Glimt, or maybe even over 1.5, or maybe exactly over 1, for example, in the first half, or 0-5 in the first half for Sporting. By the way, you can use bonuses to bet on all these Champions League events. It's an absolutely great thing to use bonuses. There are free bets. There will be a link in the comments to a bookmaker with clear withdrawal, cashback every month, 20,000 on deposit, free bets. There are insurances from 0 to 0, insurance on express bets, use them, and also in Telegram. There's a whole list of bookmakers you can work with. Everywhere there's cashback, everywhere there's a deposit bonus, and in Telegram in the comments, you'll find the links, register, and get your bonuses. Maybe you can use these bonuses to bet on the Champions League, plus get cashback every month. And also, there's an interesting point regarding the outcome I first gave for PSG and Real Madrid. Man City. Oh, Real Madrid. With pleasure, with great confidence in them. Predictions within the Champions League framework. But of course, Real Madrid, especially in the Champions League, behaves extremely unpredictably. You can safely bet on them. Well, maybe not entirely safely, but like 0.1% of your bankroll. You can even consider betting on a comeback win for real. That's when the team is losing. And then they win. It seems to me that Real is one of those teams that does this regularly in the Champions League. And I've also noticed a certain trend with them. This trend is specifically related to penalties, because in the Champions League, they definitely get them from time to time. And by the way, this is evident from the odds, because for almost every match, this odds is higher than for Real, main City. But let's try our luck at 2.85. Penalty, yes. The next pair, by the way, is scheduled for Tuesday. It's Galatasaray versus Liverpool. I think that here Liverpool is a team that tends to concede quite a bit. Maybe they'll concede from Galatasaray. 0-5 isn't very interesting. Let's try to take this as the outcome. Here, as part of the video prediction, it's over 1 exactly for Galatasaray. As an observation for the Atlético Tottenham match, that's what I would consider. By the way, maybe we'll discuss this point on Telegram. Because even now, before the match starts, they're offering pretty good odds. But I think it will be even better live. These are corners for Tottenham. I think it's possible. It should be possible to catch 2.5 or maybe even exactly 2 corners for Tottenham. We'll try to take this with you on Telegram when the matches are played on Tuesday. We'll come up with something regarding corners together. For Newcastle vs Barcelona, as an observation, I would also try to take over 3 yellow cards because there's a trend. Both teams are at a pretty serious stage in the Champions League, and Barcelona is playing with odds of 2.33, which in principle is unusual for Barcelona. It's unusual, but they're playing away. I think there could be a real fight here, and over 3 is not such a high total, by the way. I'd also keep an eye on this live. Atalanta Bavaria. An interesting event. Very interesting, because here, well, it's just about the total being over. It makes sense, and Bayern often plays for the over, but probably everyone will be betting on the total over. Let's just try to make a prediction. Under 3.5 at odds of 1.73. That's what we've come up with. Options, whether they come through or not, time will tell. Thank you for your attention. Links to Telegram and bonuses are in the comments. I hope the predictions come through. Good luck. Bye.